Carrying on with exotic gear, today we're looking at the chest as well as the gloves. Now annoyingly, this category is quite small with chests and gloves, and there's only really one thing of note, but anyway, let's just get straight into it. Up first we have Tardigrade chest. Ablative nano plating is the talent. Whenever you or an ally's armor breaks, they gain 80% of your armor as bonus armor for 10 seconds. Cooldown per ally is 45 seconds. However, killing an enemy with your specialization removes the cooldown for all allies. Has an armor core, armor regen, and explosive resistance. This chest is kind of like a condom. You'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Typically, if I'm in a group and someone's running Tardigrade, I do not notice it at all until my perfect last cannon arse does a boo-boo, and oh boy am I then very glad that they have it. It is an incredibly useful and powerful chest. There's just very few areas where this chest will actually come in handy for the overall purpose of the mission. There have been a few times in the past where I personally have had to put on a Tardigrade chest just to help out other players. Typically if we're running something along the lines of a legendary mission or doing a teaching raid, sometimes people just need that extra second or helping hand, so I tend to put on Tardigrade chest, and this tends to just help them out just enough for them to be able to learn and adapt to the situation. It's just that split second reaction time that you potentially will need, which Tardigrade gives a little bit of alleviation for. It's not overall a very powerful chest. It's not like it's going to be top tier in any situation, but in terms of team play, it's a very useful chest. Up next we have Ridgeways Pride. It has Bleeding Edge. Damaging enemies within 15 meters applies a bleed to them, and you repair 3 to 48% of your armor per second based on the number of enemies bleeding. 1 is 3%, 2 is 6%, 3 is 12, 4 is 24, and 5 is 48. It comes with a weapon core, critical hit chance, as well as critical hit damage. Now, once upon a time when I first got this chest, I decided to test it. I was able to pair it with Creeping Death, and I was able to get 5 enemies bleeding at one time, and then due to that 48% armor per second, I was damn well invulnerable. However, this very quickly ran out, and due to the cooldown of Creeping Death, I wasn't able to reapply it, which then resulted in me dying very quickly. It can be a very useful chest, it's just not sustainable in any way, shape or form, simply just because there's no real way to actively get, in a sustainable manner, 5 enemies bleeding all of the time. It is very useful in PvP areas, I am aware, but in overall composition as well as utility, simply just due to the fact that we are now lacking a chest talent, which is going to give us a lot more. Regardless essentially of what it is, just having the ability to bleed an enemy within 15 meters, great. We have a usable and sustainable use for Sadist, which is probably the most powerful weapon talent in the game. However, that's it. We lose any other form of damage or survivability that we could then put on our chest just for the privilege of using Sadist, which is kind of the bum thing about this chest. It allows you to use the most powerful talent, but it doesn't give you anything to go along with it. Even with something like Flatline, which is a 15% amp at base, perfect is 20, you still get to at least use Spotter or Glass Cannon, Obliterate, something to go with it. Whereas if you were to use this chest just for the privilege of using Sadist, which is a 20% amp, but you get nothing to go with it, so immediately you're down and out. Now we're moving on to the gloves. First up is Bloody Knuckles. We have talent, which is over the top. Damaging an enemy with a grenade or striking them with a melee attack activates Seeing Red. Seeing Red grants 25% weapon damage and 100% melee damage. Seeing Red lasts for 20 seconds and starts a 60-second cooldown upon completion. While the cooldown is active, striking an enemy with a melee or hitting them with a grenade will reset the cooldown so you can restart doing it all over again. It does come with a weapon core, critical hit chance, as well as critical hit damage. When this item first came out, I had an absolute blast running around with claws out as well as Lady Death, and I made a Hunter's Fury melee build. It was fun, it was engaging, it was something new. There was just one problem. Reliably hitting things with a grenade is kind of annoying unless you spawn trap with the survivalist flame grenade, or yeah, it's just flat out annoying. Your only other option from here is to essentially just try and run around and melee things, which was not the best way to actively go, trying to melee things on repeat. Yes, Ronan, I am aware. Still, that took you an hour and 8 minutes to do Lincoln Memorial. I don't fancy doing that, thank you very much. In terms of usability, this thing is pretty lackluster, but in terms of what it can actually give you, it is pretty damn shiny. There are a few areas within the speedrunning community where these gloves are basically paramount. You activate the proc, and then you just shoot something. It's like a one-time thing. It's kind of like in the same vein of Busy Little Bee. It can be useful, but the times of where you personally as a more casual player are going to find it useful, it's just not going to happen, and the overall performance of it is then going to be lackluster because, let's face it, you've got two options: run around and punch things, which is going to do nothing, or hopefully you can hit things with a grenade more than twice. And you've only got like 7 grenades, so good luck, and it's not like grenades drop like candy. Anyway, last on this list, and this time we have left the best till last, is the Btsu Data Gloves. Transference Overclock grants 15% skill haste per skill tier for your hive. Detonating the hive refreshes your cooldowns and grants overcharge for 15 seconds. If at skill tier 6, this effect also applies to all allies. Allies receiving this effect are unable to benefit from it again for 120 seconds. It comes with +1 skill tier, 12% skill haste, and 20% repair skill. Now this is actually worded quite interestingly. See, regardless of your skill tier, if you destroy your hive, it will overcharge you. It will only overcharge your allies if you are at skill tier 6. The thing is though, if you overcharge yourself, regardless of your skill tier, because that's what Btsu Gloves allow you to do, you are effectively then at skill tier 6. So you can destroy your hive, overcharging yourself, drop your hive again within 15 seconds and destroy your hive again, and because you are overcharged, i.e. skill tier 6, this will then also overcharge your team. You just have to do it twice rather than once, which makes this set of gloves incredibly powerful. The only bad thing about this gloves is the 20% repair skill. Although admittedly, yes, you do typically use these on healer builds. However, it's not necessarily always on healer builds. Like I just explained, you could literally put these gloves on any build as long as you have a hive and you're basically good to go. The change I would like to see happen, but it would actually make it more OP, would be to get rid of the 20% repair skill and just replace it with 10% skill efficiency. This gives you still another 10% repair skill, but it also gives you 10% skill damage, skill health, skill duration. It effectively just allows it to fit into more builds more comfortably. That's literally it. It's just a comfort thing. It's still very powerful. It's still going to be a top tier piece. Overcharge by itself is immensely powerful, considering it can do some absolutely wondrous things. Hell, if you've got players using a shield, even if they are using things like Perfect Glass Cannon, pop that overcharge. For 15 seconds, they are basically immortal. Overcharging at the right time can save an entire team, it can bolster an entire team. It is able to do some absolutely wondrous things. The only thing to be aware of is if you have an Oxy player in your group, because if you overcharge and they're not aware of it, chances are they're going to kill themselves, because the range on Oxys, like the area of effect of an Oxy, basically triples, and they might just be sat in it and not know. Btsu Gloves are literally one of the most powerful pieces, if not probably the most powerful piece overall, because of what it can offer in the entire game. It's absolutely ridiculous how strong these actually are. The only downside to this is, typically if I'm playing in a random group, is people tend to just use the overcharge to reset their revive hives. Like, don't get me wrong, this is a use for them, but you're able to get so much, and I do mean so much more, out of these gloves. Like, they're literally unreal when played in a good team composition. Anyway, that is going to be it for this video. Hopefully I've not dulled you too much. Have fun, good luck, Don't die. It's bad for the health.